What is going on? Seriously, I mean, it's not a rhetorical question. What is going on? We'll try to find out together. I'm Aslan Hajavandi. He's Corey Clark. It's a live edition of Wake Up Warchant presented by Zaxby's Indescribably Good. The best thing about Zaxby's is I feel like the sensation sort of represents what's going on right now in the world to a certain extent, Corey. Like there's so much chaos. There's a lot going on with sandwich. There's the Asian slaw. There's the sauce. There's the crunchies on top of it. There's so much going on, but at the same time, it somehow melds beautifully into a harmonious meal that just brings my day to an absolute peak. So
not at all like what's going on in the world.
Well, there's a lot going on in the world, but
it's not harmonious though.
Well, that's right. I mean, you're right. So avoid the nonsense of life by enjoying some Zaxby's. It'll perk you up. So Corey, how are you, man? Joining us from greater Atlanta area as normal.
Hey man, it's a pretty day. As you can see behind me, it's a nice day outside. You know, the stuff going on in the world that we cover isn't the best news in the world, but hey, I'm upbeat, I'm positive-ish, and ready to go. Ready to have some fun on a glorious Tuesday on Gene Williams' birthday.
That's right.
The big 3-5.
Let's go, big dog. Happy birthday, Gene Williams, aka.com, founder and administrator of warchant.com. This thing's been up and running since, I think, 98 when it was called FSU Knowles. And what a great segue. Why don't you go ahead and do Gene a favor and sign up for a membership and do yourself a favor because you'll save 25% off an annual membership if you use a promo code Norvell2020. That's not all. You'll also get a $25 e-card to Garnet and Gold. As you know, Garnet and Gold's like the IKEA, the Amazon of Florida State. Pretty much anything you want with the Florida State logo, the colors, They've got it. You can save $25 on your purchase at garnetandgold.com. You can use it no matter where you live. So you don't have to be in Tallahassee to take advantage. And Gene went ahead and said, hey, rivals, 3 free months on top of all that. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not good with math, but do all that math right there. It's like over $200 almost, nearly $200 worth of stuff for like under 100. I don't know, man. Figure out the math. I'm not the pro on this. It's amazing. Seriously, you cannot beat this offer. If you want to get a membership, now's the time to do it. Right, Corey?
Absolutely. It really is a great offer. And we're a good website. You'll like the stuff we do.
Hit the thumbs up button as well. You're watching this on YouTube. Just, hit the like button. It matters. Believe it or not, it does. And also subscribe. It's the lower right corner. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's free. You can set the notifications, control it however frequently or infrequently you want to be notified. We'll open the phone lines up here in a minute. Figure we'd probably take 5-7 minutes or so. Just to kind of set the table or whatever, Corey. We were supposed to have player and coach interviews this morning after Florida State concluded practice. Instead, they pivoted to a roundtable discussion with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
But it was not a roundtable, was it?
It was not. My lawyer pointed that out very astutely. He's like, why do they call it a roundtable when it's more of a rectangle? I don't know. We can maybe find that out together. There's probably a lot of stuff we don't know. That's just the tip of the iceberg on this. John Thrasher, University president, as well as athletics director David Coburn was there with Mike Norvell, the head football coach, Keyshawn Helton, and Joshua Kando. I think you watched from
the governor.
Yeah, well, I mentioned that. Yeah, I mentioned Florida.
Oh, I didn't hear you mention him.
Also, speaking of which, we're also going to break down the VP pick of the Democratic Party. So do stay tuned for that. It's going to be
sure.
What were your initial thoughts? I guess what did you take away from it? For me, being there, I walked in kind of a little skeptical of what's going to go on because we heard about the Big Ten and the Pac-12. That's now official. But man, like being in there, hearing them talk so forcefully about why they should play, why they want to play. I left there, and I would characterize it as a pep rally almost. I'm like, I can't see Florida State and the ACC not playing after you take this sort of step to bring the governor on board and have this big impromptu sort of meeting, and to hear the way the players spoke and Mike Norvell spoke and John Thrasher putting his lab coat on and talking about, myocarditis is just, I'm like, man, they mean business. They're going to play come hell or high water. What did you take away from the meeting?
Well, I took away a lot. I didn't take away the last thing you said. I hope they have the power of their convictions. We know the will is there, but to what extent? Because again, there's going to be a great deal of pressure on them because I think they knew what was coming and they wanted to get out in front of it. So that's why they had the press conference when they did. I'm sure Thrasher and Coburn, maybe even DeSantis, knew that the Big Ten announcement, the Pac-12 announcements were imminent. But if you really think that this is the safest place for these players, if you really, really do, then don't just follow. If that's not just talk, if you really do believe that, then just don't follow don't be a domino. Say we're playing. Even if the ACC says we're not playing, Michigan will play you. You know Nebraska will play you. Nebraska wants to play anyone, according to Scott Frost. Michigan was still practicing after the Big Ten canceled the season. They were still practicing. There are schools out there that will play you. I'm sure there are some ACC schools that will play you, even if you just want to get 4 or 5 games. But by and large, keeping it in an ideal scenario, if the Big 12 will probably have a meeting in the next couple of days, maybe tonight. They might be having a meeting tonight.
I think 6 o'clock, actually. I'll double check that, but carry on.
And they might have an announcement. They might follow suit. That does not mean you have to follow suit. And I was going to be Mr. Snarky when we started the show and say congratulations to all the Pac-12 and Big Ten athletes. You're now in no danger of catching COVID. You're safe from COVID, so congratulations on that. Because again, if you're going to have kids in school, there's just no data that says it's more dangerous to play football. Now, if you're canceling school and making it all online, that's okay, but I haven't heard that from the Big Ten and the Pac-12. Apparently, they still are going to have classes. And if you're doing that, I haven't read one yet, and I've read a lot of them. I haven't read a salient argument about canceling football, but keeping the kids on campus. That way they're safer. Because Ira brought up a good point on headlines today. Do you think Florida State will continue to pay for testing if there's not a season?
No, why should they?
Well, I mean, they could to just keep their athletes healthy, maybe, or safe, or check up on them. But if there's not a season, there's no will to do that. And those things cost a lot of money. They're doing that. I mean, we're all big boys. We know the deal. They're doing that so they can play a season. If the season isn't happening, the testing stops at a lot of schools. And you can't tell me these guys are safer away from the facility. But anyway, I don't even want to get into that. I do think that was their will is there. The will from Thrasher is there. The will from Coburn, obviously, and the will from DeSantis. He's not going to have much of a say, but President Thrasher will. And it's just a matter of making sure the other, if you really believe it, have the power of your convictions and stay with it.
Well, that's the thing. So that's why I'm saying I see them playing like hell or high water. You don't bring the governor on your campus, your university president, and your AD, and your head coach, and 2 players. And basically the governor is coordinating and conducting this. I mean, it's pretty much like having your ex-wife up on the stand in a divorce proceeding. You're like, so tell me about that time you got really drunk and you passed out and you forgot the kids were in the car. And it's like, yeah, I got really drunk one time. I passed out and forgot the kids were in the car. I mean, DeSantis is telling these kids basically, how important is it for you to play football? What's going to happen if you don't have football? Yeah, football is really important to me. If I don't have football, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, it's for them to go to this extent to have that political theater go on their campus. Like it'd be a huge sort of about face, I would think, almost as much as the Big Ten releasing a schedule and then 6 days later saying, never mind.
I'm saying that the about faces are happening. And what I hope is that, again, see it through. I don't know how much. Thrasher's just one president, though. You know, what's the Duke president going to say? What's the Syracuse president going to say? What's the Pitt president going to say? We know Florida State wants to play. The Big Ten vote wasn't unanimous. I'm sure the Pac-12 vote wasn't unanimous. The Big 12 vote probably won't be unanimous. In fact, we're reading it right now that they're split right now before the meeting. So, you know, we'll see. But John Thrasher isn't calling the shots. He's calling the shots for Florida State to a point, but they're at a conference. Again, it's confusing what's changed in the last 4 or 5 days. I don't quite understand it. Think of all the money that they've spent. I mean, Florida State has its own COVID testing site. You know, they've spent a lot of money to get this thing up and running. For the most part, it would seem, especially in the last month, that the players have done really well abiding by the protocols. It would be a shame, like Kendo said, to do all that hard work and then not play. But, you know, obviously I'm not being cynical about their safety. I do hope whatever decision they make is safer for the players.
All right, right on. All right, let's take a phone call. We got our first caller of the evening here on Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's live on YouTube. Who is it?
Hey, Aslan. Hey, Corey. It's Gator Kirk from.
What's up, man? Your streak is back.
How you doing?
Let's go, man. Give me some comfort, Kirk. Give me some comfort, G. Come on.
All right. Well, First you guys got to sign up for this War Chant deal because that thing's awesome.
That's right.
Also, congrats to Blackman. He's on the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm watch list this year, so hopefully there'll be a season so he can, show off that new form that he has.
That's right.
And the watch list just got cut in half, probably.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, doesn't have to compete with Justin Fields. That's a good thing.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. So we're gonna do another musical theme. So since
the world is burning down around us right now. You want to talk about music while the world is burning down around us?
I'm all for it. I don't want to talk about the world.
I want to know what song you're kind of a little down in the dumps, not really sure, want to be a little motivated. All of a sudden, this song comes on that automatically just makes you happy. So what song is it for you all?
Wham! Wake Me Up Before You Go.
Okay, that's
Sailing. Some Christopher Cross.
There's a lot of them that make
notes, make my dreams come true.
It Takes Two by Rob Bass.
Okay.
I can't hear that and not just start bobbing and rapping along a little bit. I guess we call that rap. That's definitely one. Man, another happy song like I was gonna say Everybody Hurts by REM. That one just always gets me in the feels every time. Always puts a smile on my face. Other than that, I can't think of any off the top of my head. I want to hear his answer. Let's go. Let's hear it.
Yeah, G, what have you been using the past few days to pep up?
Walking on Sunshine, Katrina and the Waves.
There we go. Good.
Gotta go back to my favorite, The Cure. Friday, I'm in Love.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then I guess Goo Goo Dolls, like Iris or one of those songs like that.
All right, my man. All right, that works, I guess.
Yeah. And sometimes, it could be the Gin Blossoms with Hey Jealousy, because, opportunities you missed out on.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
That's a tough one.
Everything. Go ahead. My bad.
No, that's okay. I was just saying that's a tough one. I guess Goo Goo Dolls, Baby's Black Balloon is going to fly. That gets people rolling. That gets people dancing. Anything that gets me off my feet, G. That's all I'm looking for. Just to start, just a little bit, not a ton, just a little bit of this is all I'm looking for.
All right, you gentlemen, you try to keep positive in Atlanta and in Tally. As always, go Noles and support the Seminoles and War Chant. Good night, fellas.
That's right. Thank you, G. Appreciate you, man. Be well.
Yeah, no worries. Y'all have fun.
Thanks, buddy.
That's the answer right there. Enterprise 191111. Feels Good by Tony.
He spelled Tony the same way all three times, though.
That's right, though. Come on, tighten up, Enterprise. But that's the right answer. That's probably the right answer. I like that. All right.
What about is it Montel Jordan? This is how we do it.
Right.
And that's Montel Jordan, right?
Yeah, it is correct.
That's a good jam.
Hey, we got another phone call. I think this is not going to be a problem today, having phone calls.
Seminole Wind.
Welcome on into Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's. Corey's listening to you. So am I. A whole bunch of Florida State fans across the country and the world on YouTube. Who's this?
This is Daryl from Thomasville, North Carolina. How y'all doing today?
There he is.
What's up, man?
Doing good. I was going to ask y'all, I know the Big Ten, Pac-12, they decided not to play. I read where they saying, well, what about making a 1 year Power 5 conference to see about having one big Power 5 conference and just having a bunch of teams in one big lump sum. What y'all think about that?
I don't think they'll do that for this year. I am curious because Nebraska really wants to play. They made that obvious. What they could do, like if they could join a league for a year or just schedule non-conference games with at least have 5 or 6 games. I don't know what they could do if they really want to play. But Nebraska and Michigan definitely want to play. I think what you could do. If the ACC and SEC stay strong and hold tight, then there's really no reason that they would have to deviate at all. I mean, you lose Samford probably. You lose a non-conference game, but other than that, you just play your conference season if the ACC and SEC go at it alone, which isn't out of the realm of possibility. The South is different. We all know that. We saw today a governor talking about college football at a roundtable, which was more of a long table, with players and ADs. I mean, it does mean a lot down here, maybe more so than other places of the country. And but yeah, I mean, I guess there's a chance. Like if the ACC comes out, this is what I'd be doing if I was Thrasher. Number one, I'd be cashing my check. I'd be at the bank just looking at my account, just looking at it and just loving it. But also, I would have in place, if the ACC comes and says we're not playing as a conference, you have Nebraska's AD, you have Nebraska, you have Michigan on speed dial. That's not a thing anymore. It's not 1988, Corey. You have them in your cell phone. You text them. You ask them if they're up. What are they doing? You're looking for a good time. You're looking for a football game. You slide up into their DMs, and you do it with other schools in the ACC that might want to play, the schools that voted with you whenever you have this vote, and you can still arrange something. I think. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that if there's 16 teams in these Power Fives that desperately want to play, cram them together. They're not going to be kicked out of their conference when it gets back to normal, hopefully next year. I don't think that's a probability. I don't even know how possible it is. But it seems like if you're desperate, and desperate times call for desperate measures, you could certainly be talking to Nebraska about a one-off or a home and home this season. If the will is really there to play football, you could be talking to Nebraska about scheduling. What's the ACC going to do? Say no, you're not allowed to do that? They don't run you. You're your own entity, so you could do that. I don't know if anybody will. I don't know if the willpower is there. But Aslan, don't you think that could at least be explored?
Well, that's a question also on the over on the Tribal Council, Pete Colonel 07. Years ago, I thought it was a pipe dream that power conferences would create a super conference of sorts and leave the NCAA. But the past couple of years, especially past couple of months, my mindset has changed. Now I think it's inevitable. What are your thoughts on this? Can it be accomplished? Also, obviously, Daryl on the phone asking this. I mean, maybe like a month and a half ago, or not even that, maybe like 2 weeks ago before they decided to go with this conference only stuff. I mean, I feel like that part of it, I mean, if you want to do it as a pilot one-off, I mean, the schedule's already kind of announced. I mean, are you going to blow everything up and then, make schedules all over again? I mean, what do you do with Samford? Do you pay them hush money to walk away and fill them in with Nebraska? Do you go to ESPN and talk to ESPN and your television partners about the fact that more people, more advertisers are going to want to be on a game that's Nebraska, it's Seminoles versus Cornhuskers, than they're going to want Samford Bulldogs versus FSU? That's the whole thing. I mean, Herbstreit was on ESPN and Joey Galloway and Rod Gilmore and Heather Dinich and David Pollock. I mean, they've had everybody on the payroll that does college football on ESPN. And that's the whole thing. This is the either the last shot or the first blow up in terms of breaking away and making your own autonomous sort of league away from the NCAA. I mean, it's going to happen, but I can't see it happening here in the next 30 days. But perhaps this is the beginning of it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't call it necessarily a super conference because that implies that there's like 30 teams in one league. I think you still keep, if they break away from the NCAA, you just keep the Power Five. The Power Five stays the Power Five. Maybe you let in a few on headlines. We did like the schools that we let in from the group of five, and maybe some Power Five schools that we tell to have a nice day. Like, sorry, Missouri, you're not doing anything for us. You don't get to come. Arkansas. Maybe Arkansas. They've won at least a national basketball championship. But there are some schools, the Mississippi schools. Sorry, Vanderbilt. Hey, man, go create great doctors. Solve this thing. But you're not in our Power Five big super duper league. So I don't know. I think that's where it's going for sure. I don't know how quickly we get there, how much this expedites it, but I do think it expedites it some. That was a long-winded answer. I'm sorry, man.
I got one quick question, and I'll get off and then listen to you answer off the air. If does SEC, ACC, and Big 12 have enough power to play three conferences for just this year only? And I'll just say go Noles, and hope we have a season. God bless y'all, and y'all have a good day. Bye bye.
Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I worry about I'm seeing now where people think everybody knows the ACC and the SEC want to play. So the Big 12 is apparently some sort of tipping point where if they stay in with the ACC and SEC, then all of a sudden, they'll go forward. But if the Big 12 says, no, we're going to go with the Big 10 and the Pac-12, then I guess people think that the ACC and SEC would follow. I don't necessarily know that that's true now because they have come out. Like all the schools are, even the schools' Twitter feeds are saying we want to play and tweeting that out. Presidents are coming out. The Tennessee chancellor went to practice and tweeted about it. Obviously, you saw what happened at Florida State today. There is will at a lot of these schools to play. So maybe they don't let, the SEC thinks it doesn't. The SEC would rather no schools play football, period, except for the teams in their conference anyway. So I don't know that they would let what happens in the Big 10 or Pac-12 dictate what they do. They feel like they're their own entity. The ACC, if they're getting the advice that the head of the medical advisory panel said today, that they think it's safer to play football than not. That was the head of the ACC medical advisory panel. If they think that's true, then hold hands with the SEC and go in it together. And if you're walking alone, you're walking alone. Well, you're not alone. At least you got them. I don't know how much sway the Big 12's decision one way or another will have on the schools in the South.
I think Mac Brown was quoted just something about he feels like it'll be an obstacle, maybe insurmountable. That's not his verbatim word or adjective he used, but just basically if it'll be tough to play if there's multiple Power 5 conferences that have folded. And obviously the Big 10 and Pac-12 have. I don't know really. I mean, I think the Big 12 folds, then yeah, you're going to have 2 power conferences and then the Sun Belt. That'll be kind of weird. But
you're just playing your season.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I mean, you really could. I mean, you could play your conference schedule and you can determine a conference champion, and that's that for 2020. I don't know how much easier it is maybe for a school like Florida State at this point to kind of swallow and take that, because you probably don't think you're going to win the national title or be able to compete for a playoff spot. So
let me tell you this: you can still have the playoffs, and you can still have a national championship if it's just the ACC and the SEC. There's been one non-Southern team to win the national championship in the last 13 years, and it was Ohio State. Okay. Every other champion has come from the ACC or the SEC. So hey, man, you can still have and I tell you what, if you win the national championship this year, it would have more validity than half of the national championships like Alabama claims. Any of the national championships, half the ones that Notre Dame claim or Army claim. I mean, it might have an asterisk by it, sure, but it still counts as much as some 6-0 season in 1923 before integration.
Player conferences, man. Player conference, crown your conference champions. Let's get back to it.
And whoever wins the conference James B., we love you, man. Whoever wins the conference championships play each other, and that you're the champ. You're the 2020 champion.
Thank you, James B. Appreciate that. $10 in the tip jar for your guys. I mean, you're going to crown a national champion where I guess right now we're already something like over 40 teams aren't going to play. But to your point, I guess there were less teams playing and more nonsense about crowning a champion back in those days. And maybe do the ACC, SEC challenge. Just those conference champions play each other in some sort of
that's what I'm saying.
Game, make it pay-per-view or whatever, and see how the chips fall. So that is a possibility. Brandon breaking some news for us, apparently saying the SEC just released a statement on Twitter saying they'll definitely play. I can't corroborate that, but I'll hustle over.
I'll look at it. You want to answer James B's question? He gave us money, man. We got to go back and answer his question.
James usually just so generous. He's just like, here's money. All right, let's bring Nebraska into the ACC, and then we have the extra team when we include Notre Dame. What do you guys think? Not exactly the footprint, I know, but what the heck?
For a season, sure. For 1 year, I don't know that they would. I mean, you could always reach out. Like we don't know how contentious it got. If it got really contentious, and Nebraska's really angry about this, but they have a contract. I'm sure that we just can't hop out of the conference whenever they want. But I mean, you could always make overtures to them. It would be great to have another football school. Now, look, we all know Nebraska hasn't been relevant in a couple decades. But it's still fine. They're still a football school with great fans and a great fan base, good stadium. I don't. You could at least make an overture and see, but I don't know what their status is, and I would assume they're locked in for a good while.
Yeah, I don't think these are very easy. I don't think these are easy to break out of these sort of contracts. I mean, Florida State fans, we keep complaining about the whole a grant of rights and wanting to leave the ACC, but we can't. I don't know if this would be some sort of action that they could file as a grievance to be able to break out of their contract, but I don't think they'll upend the alliance they formed with the Big Ten because of one season. But I do wonder, I'm trying to I can't find the proper metaphor for if the commissioner and the conference, we're not playing football, what does stop Nebraska from not trying to be the +1? Because the Big 12 is 9+1. ACC is 10+1. The SEC is the only one that doesn't have that. They went the 8+2 really, and they're adding 2 other conference games. So there's not a whole lot of option for you to play SEC teams. I mean, it sounds great, in the fantasy football world that we've all gotten used to, but I just don't think that you bring in. I mean, the Notre Dame thing makes sense. They're already kind of in your conference. There's relationships that have been established between the leadership of the university and the institution of the ACC. But to bring Nebraska in on a one-off, it's 2020. You can't say nothing is impossible, but I find that highly unlikely. But it'd be cool, man. I'd rather play Nebraska than Samford. Being totally honest, I'd rather play Ohio State than Samford. I don't know if Norvell would rather.
Well, I don't know if Mike Norvell agrees with that sentiment. Hey, so I found the quote from Sankey. He just released it. You can find it on Twitter. It was just in the last 5 minutes, but I'll read it.
Is it from him?
Learning what?
Is it from him?
Yeah. I look forward to learning more about the factors that led to the Big Ten and Pac-12 leadership to take these actions today. I remain comfortable with the thorough and deliberate approach that the SEC and our 14 members are taking to support a healthy environment for our student athletes. We will continue to further refine our policies and protocols for a safe return to sports as we monitor developments around COVID-19 and a continued effort to support, educate, and care for our student athletes every day. The ACC released something similar a few minutes before that.
Okay. All right.
So they're basically telling their constituents, which is fans, we're not, no matter what happens with the Big 12, Big 10 and Pac-12 did this, we're still, for now, steady down the stream, and we plan on playing.
Again, I think they will. I mean, he said, the caller, we'll get to here in a second. I think Greg Sankey said the most salient thing the other day, and it was, I don't know. I mean, we don't really know if they can do this, if they can't do this. There still is some runway before you have to, They've
got Florida State's got a month, essentially, 30 days, the ACC does, but they've got 45 days. They've still got time to figure out something if they want to give it a go, which they do.
Absolutely. All right, caller, thanks for hanging tight there. Who is this?
This is Ed from Pensacola.
Ed, all right, Ed, how are you?
What's up, Ed? How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing, Corey? How you doing, Aslan?
Doing well.
I had a question. How's it going to go, say, if the SEC and the ACC play football?
Okay.
And then the other teams are moving to the spring.
Right.
How are they going to do that? And how do we play again in the spring, or they take what they do in the spring to what we did in the fall, or does anybody know?
No, nobody knows for sure. That, to me, that's them kicking the can down the road. Now there could be advances made in the next 5 or 6 months that make it more suitable for them to play football. Maybe, I don't know if a vaccine would matter, but certainly numbers going down would help, and numbers seem to be going down, or at least have plateaued, which is nice. But I don't know about the spring because, again, if you're worried about the safety of your student athletes, I can't fathom how it would be safe for them to play 2 full seasons in 1 calendar year. So they're going to play in the spring, and let's say they just do conference only in the spring. So from whatever that would be, January 30th to April, and then you take 2 months off, then you play a whole nother season. So you're talking about 22, 23 games in a span of 11 months or 10 months. That to me doesn't seem all that feasible, and that is a recipe for danger. Not death necessarily, but 23 games is a lot for a 19-year-old kid to play at that level. So I have no idea. I have no idea how it will impact if they play. Again, I would give that a 25% chance of happening. But if that happens, what happens to the NFL draft? How many kids even play? Is Justin Fields going to play in the spring at Ohio State when he's going to be a first round pick? Is he going to risk it? I don't know how any of that will work, but I know the ACC, if they play in the fall, will then take the spring off like they normally do, have spring practice, and then go back and play again in the fall. In the Big Ten, we'll have to figure out what in the world they're doing.
Yeah, but so would they rate the ACC and the SEC's fall results against the guys that play in the spring?
Oh no, I don't think so. I think each team, let's say it's the ACC and SEC alone in the fall, and then the other 3 Power Fives go in the spring. Well, if they want to crown their own little champion, they can. But the ACC and SEC, they won't. I don't think the ACC will be like, if Clemson wins the conference, I don't think they'll be waiting until May to play the winner of the Big Ten in a playoff scenario. I think these are all these one-off season entities, right? You just, maybe Clemson plays Alabama to say who won the fall. You can have a fall champion, and then you can have a spring champion, I guess. But I don't think, if they're alone, they're alone. Like, if they're off doing their thing in the spring and the ACC and SEC decide to stick to the fall, then that's what will happen. And they obviously don't care about the Big Ten hasn't cared at all throughout this whole process about what other conferences thought anyway. So heaven knows the ACC and SEC don't give a flip about what they do in the spring.
Gotcha. I was just wondering.
All right, Ed.
Okay.
Appreciate the call, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah, man. I was wondering, like, if you're the Big Ten or in Pac-12, like, why not play like a 2-3 game mini season in the spring and then play actually in the summer when your campuses are pretty much empty like they are now, then try to get your season. But then you miss the boat to get back on the 2021 calendar to play fall football like we always do. Let's send a shout out to Colin Harris, Double H's, as his friends call him, Double H. What happens if conferences, appreciate the tip, by the way.
Thank you very much, Harlan. That's very nice, buddy.
My mom always told me to say thank you, and I do say thank you. Maybe it doesn't come off sincerely, but I appreciate it.
He is. He's very happy about you guys donating money, for real. Aslan talks to me about it a lot.
Tipping. We shouldn't say donation. People.
Sorry, tipping. Yeah, you're tipping.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it bothers people that other people are giving us money to do this. But anyhow, that's neither here nor there. Harlan asks, sweet swing, by the way. Harlan, is that you or your son?
I was wondering, what does the uniform say, too? Can you tell what uniform?
I can't see. I can't tell. I can't.
The people that are listening to this on a podcast, Harlan's avatar, I guess, is a picture of left-handed. It's left-handed, right? Hey, Swolno, come on, buddy. We gotta make it. We gotta do it for the people. It's a left-handed swing. It looks like a college baseball player.
Yeah.
But we can't see what the uniform is, so we don't know if that's Harlan or Harlan's kid or Harlan's brother. Yeah. Maybe Harlan's dad. We don't know who that is that's swinging or what uniform that is. But it is a nice looking follow through.
Swolno said he doesn't like the horn. Some of you might agree, but I don't care. What happens, Harlan asks, if conferences cancel and then just teams in Florida play? Come here, Willie. I believe this has been mentioned. Where does the TV money go? Interesting thought. Corey is the best.
Thank you, Harlan. I appreciate that. And I'm not going to argue with you. I think it certainly could happen. You have what do you have, Aslan? You have USF and UCF, FAU, FIU, Florida State, Florida, and Miami. So that's 7 Division I teams. FBS teams. So yeah, you could set up. Look, man, the governor, whatever you think about him, he desperately wants a college football season to be played, and he would push for something like that. So if worse comes to worse, maybe that's a viable scenario where the 7 teams in Florida decide to play. And if the schools are on board with it, I don't think you would have any problem convincing Fox Sports or ESPN to get a TV deal for that. They would air college football in any capacity in the fall. Now, maybe I think if there wasn't college football, I think the NFL would spread out some, so it's not all on one day. So maybe you do all your games on, it really doesn't matter. You could do all your games Friday night, Sunday, Tuesday. But I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance if that happened, you'd get a pretty good payday for it. I just think the networks would be very desperate for TV money of any sort for college football. It would be nothing like what Florida State and Florida and Miami would be used to necessarily, but it might be enough to pay for all the tests.
I think it'd be super cool if they could get like an 8th team and do it like round robin over the course of a month, but then do it like all in Orlando, like quadruple headers, like 2 weeks of quadruple headers, and then you go down to 4 teams, then you have a double header, and you have like a championship game. Like imagine like if they played at the Citrus Bowl or whatever it's called now in Orlando, and the first game was at 10 a.m., then they had like a 2:30 game, then they had a 6:30 game, then a 10 p.m. game.
Okay.
They played 4 games in one weekend, same field.
Well, you can't do that. That would tear up the field.
I mean, they can do it. I think it's
turf. You find a turf field.
I think it's turf these days. I think it's artificial these days. And then, you can knock it out, and it's not so protracted and long and putting these guys in harm's way for longer than they really have to be. I wonder who that 8th team would be, though. Like Jacksonville. Actually, I think JU shuttered their football.
So
player.
Not going to be them.
Yeah, it won't be them. I don't know. There's got to be somebody else out there. We'll figure it out.
FAMU?
Hey, there we go. But then Bethune's going in on it, and then.
Well, that's true. Maybe they play a playing game.
Playing game. There we go. Figured it out. We figured it out, man. Shout out to Big Throw Athletics. Plug your ears, Swole Knoll. Big Throw Athletics. Appreciate it, man. He just says he's a big fan. Didn't even ask a question or anything. Just wants to keep my job going. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Big Throw. We appreciate that, man. We really do.
For sure. Former player listens every morning you're on. All right.
All right. Nice.
Well, maybe what was the name of the young man who played or not played, but threw the shot put and then played for the Giants for a little bit? Austin something.
Was it Drew?
Druzma. Yeah, maybe that's him.
It could be him, yeah.
It could be. We're bouncing back and forth between phone calls and taking your messages here on YouTube. Phone lines back open. So we have a few missed calls. So
so here's one thing again, though. When it comes to just no centralized leadership has really come to the forefront in the last 5 months, because this is it's
what is the NCAA going to do? Like, nobody likes me to start off with. So, I mean, I don't want to be even hated more and stick up for the NCAA by any means here, but I feel like the NCAA gave all the sort of control to the conferences. Like, you guys care the most. Like, I mean, that sounds like they're kicking or passing the buck down, but they made the threshold for testing really low. They said 1 time a week so that everybody could afford it. The NCAA didn't do anything to prevent these schools from getting a season off. So I don't know why they're getting so much hate.
I don't even think it's necessarily the NCAA. There has to be a mechanism in place. This is too big a business now for conferences just to go at it and willy-nilly decide what they want to do and go against what all the other. There's no work to get. I'm Donald Heaven. There you go. There's no bipartisanship. Certainly not the right word. They don't seem to think about each other at all.
Consensus there, yeah.
There's no consensus at all, and we thought there was 5 days ago when everybody's announcing their schedules. Then all of a sudden, the Big Ten decides, no, we're not playing, and that starts a cavalcade, and dominoes start falling. And I don't quite understand, what happened there. But also, you can understand players and coaches' frustrations when they're told of all these things by the university to do.
And they're doing it all.
Right, to get it done. And Michigan was doing it almost flawlessly, did everything right. The thing that Harbaugh sent out yesterday about 10,000 tests and only 6 positives in the last, probably not 10,000, but whatever the test number was, it was a minute number of positive tests, and they'd done everything right in the protocol. And then they're told they can't play anyway. Well, then what was all that about? And how much money was wasted to keep those kids doing the protocols for 2 or 3 months to then say it didn't matter, you're not playing anyway. And on top of that, Aslan, how asinine is it that they're practicing? What if it's unsafe to play football? If we're worried about the safety of football, I guess for transmission reasons, they think they can transmit in football. Why were they still practicing today? Where was the edict from the Big Ten to shut it down? If you're worried about their health, are you telling me it's less safe to play another team in another Big Ten team that has the same protocols in the big house than it is to practice up against each other? Like what's the difference? It just, I don't quite, but there's no leadership to tell them that. There's no leadership to say, no, you can't practice anymore. Or there's no leadership to say, look, guys, the Power 5 we are going to wait until September 6th to decide for sure. There is no reason for you to jump ahead. If there was somebody that could say that, there's no reason for you to jump ahead before kids get on campus anyway and cancel the season, because you're putting all your other brothers in a bind. There's no connection. There's no consensus, and it's really, really frustrating because it's too big a business now. These schools make a ton of money. They're in it together. They should be anyway, but apparently they're just more and more fractured. So I'll stop talking like this. I hate the tone of my voice.
Well, how can the Big Ten and the Pac-12 afford to not play football, but the ACC and SEC, have to do everything in their power to keep this thing going forward? I'm almost more curious about that than Greg Sankey's sort of passive-aggressive comment about I'm looking forward to looking at the data that the Pac-12 and Big Ten have that apparently we don't have that led them to make this decision. But I saw somewhere like Fox spent over $85 million on Big Ten football just last season. So the Big Ten is that flush with cash. And I know their endowments are huge in those land grant universities in the Midwest, but they're that flush with cash that they're going to walk away from a season. But the SEC, which is making pretty much comparable amount of money, cannot afford to walk away. I think the will's a little different. I also think the constituency and the fan bases is obviously a little bit different. And they know that the fans of all those SEC schools, save Vanderbilt, are desperate for a football season. And I don't know if the fans at Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana care one way or the other. I think that has something to do with it too. But it's all a bummer. It's all a bummer, but I'm going to pick it up. I'm not going to sound so frustrated anymore. Well, so here's the thing. So what stops the ACC? The ACC's medical leader, medical director for the entire conference said that he feels it's safe to go on. John Thrasher obviously seems to have the will, the gut, and I don't want to say guts, but seems to have the will to fight off the arrows that'll be slung his way for trying to continue to play a season. I imagine Clemson's in the same boat. I would think that, Miami's not that far away from that sort of belief. North Carolina, even though Mac Brown said he thinks it's quite challenging. What would stop Florida State then? Other than the actual virus and a breakout, I can't see what is going to develop here over the next 2 weeks. Is it going to be pressure? Sally Jenkins of the Washington Post?
Yeah, I think I think that's what always happens with administrators and state employees, bureaucrats, however you want to call them. Pressure and optics can really affect what you do moving forward. And again, I just want to clarify, if I thought for a second that they're more likely to get COVID from playing football than they were from going to class or just being a college kid on campus, I would say shut it down. And to me, it would make more sense if schools were just shut down than to keep schools open but shut down football. That to me just doesn't make a ton of sense.
Well, aren't they kind of, by doing this whole mainly online class
because they're all coming to campus. They're still all coming back to the city. And they're all going to hang out on Friday and Saturday nights, I think.
But it's the liability of you can tell kids that they have to put a mask on campus. They have to be 6 feet away in a classroom. But they're going to do whatever they're going to do at a nightclub. That's off your watch. It's off your hands. There's a bit of a difference, I think. There's some nuance. But
yeah, there is.
Anywho, we got a caller. Thanks for hanging tight there for a minute or so. Welcome on into Wake Up Warchant presented by Zaxby's. Who is this? Where are you calling us from?
From Tallahassee, actually. This is Matthew.
Matthew from Tallahassee. All right, Matthew. How are you,
Matthew?
Doing pretty good. It's my first time calling in.
All right. Welcome on in.
Local student, so
okay.
Trying to figure out what's going on.
All right. So has this altered you? Will this alter your plans for the fall? Will you still go to Yanni's on a Friday night and do a Y-bomb?
Actually, I'm actually taking a gap semester. So what I'm doing is most of my classes are going to be online. So I'm just going to start working for a semester, then go back to school after.
Okay. Well, that's smart. Way to evolve and adapt to your surroundings.
Yeah. That's what we call adapting, adjusting. Yeah. Well done.
What's going on? What's on your mind, Matthew?
So I posted a thread on the website earlier, and I'm pretty sure Ira and Gene responded to it, just kind of pointing out what is happening in terms of transfers and the potential for FSU to probably bulk up their roster, because I would think a lot of players would want to go to conferences they're still playing, even if they might not even be starting, just that way they could be in the program. And beyond that, that's like one question. Then also, I'm sure the conferences that have these players transferring out are going to probably try to stop that. How bad do you think the optics will look for that?
Well, that would look awful. I can't imagine that any conference, I can't imagine like Ohio State would keep their running back from transferring out when his option is to not play. Like if he's taking it upon himself to say, I know about this, I'm educated about this, I know the risk, I want to go play. What grounds would they have to say, no, you have to stay here on our scholarship and just not play? You don't get a choice to play. I don't think any school would keep a player from doing that.
If I can for a second, actually, that's kind of my bad. I didn't necessarily mean like not being able to transfer. I meant immediate eligibility, because I'm pretty sure Ira actually is the one that one of the responses he had to my post, and he said something along the lines of, they're probably going to say, since we're planning on playing in spring, which I don't think is happening anyways, they might not get immediate eligibility.
Yeah, no, that's not really up to the schools as much as it is the NCAA, and that's a can of worms that, frankly, that institution just has no chance of doing correctly or figuring out, just none. So that's a really interesting point, though, because if a guy from Ohio State or anybody, if Indiana's right tackle says, you know what, Florida State could use me, I want to play there. It's up to the NCAA to grant him immediate eligibility. But what if the NCAA doesn't really approve of the ACC actually playing games? Are they going to if they think it, now the NCAA can't dictate to the ACC that they can't play, but if they don't think it's a good idea, would they kind of, for the kid's own sake, not let him transfer because they agree with the Big Ten? Man, that's a fascinating development. If it really comes out that like there's only going to be 2 conferences playing, and all the other schools are sitting out to the spring, which basically means they're not going to play, in my opinion. I can't imagine all the headaches and transfers and the portal. The portal is going to be overloaded. I can't. I mean, the servers will be down. I don't know what will happen to that. What do you think, Aslan? I mean, that's a really good question because I don't know.
We pulled up the post from Matthew. He goes by Mad Matt 88. Sorry to blow your cover. Sorry to blow your cover. But I think I think Ira's point is pretty on the nose, just about the fact that the immediate eligibility. I would agree with Ira. I'm assuming their argument, the Big Ten, would be if you're Ohio State and Ryan Day, is like, hey, we're going to play. We're just going to play 6 months from now. So we shouldn't just let these guys be able to leave and get instant eligibility because they'll probably lose a significant amount of their rosters to teams that are playing. I mean, if 3 Power 5 conferences are going, I mean, a lot of guys from Michigan and Ohio State and Michigan State and Penn State will jump ship, and the Big Ten.
If the NCAA allows it, because as little oversight as the NCAA has with college football, they do still, for whatever reason, get to decide on transfers and immediate eligibility. So that'll be really interesting to see what they do in this situation because the Big Ten will be arguing with them. This isn't fair. We're playing in 4 months. They shouldn't be allowed to transfer without penalty.
So I'm gonna make one last little point, I guess, and then leave you guys with a question. And then thank you very much, by the way.
Yeah, man.
So obviously, I think the Big Ten and Pac-12 are gonna try to not let immediate eligibility because their rosters could be completely depleted, especially with high-end talent. But which would help FSU, to be quite frank. But the idea, I think, that they push, we're going to be playing in the spring. What happens if they end up canceling that too? How bad that would be? It would look absolutely awful. And I mean, honestly, if that happens, I think the ACC, SEC, the Big 12 decides to stay in it, are going to just look amazing in comparison, like recruiting for future classes and stuff. I just think it looks so bad on these conferences and schools. But other than that, thank you guys. Great. Love you, Corey. Love you, Aslan.
Why'd I say you first?
And
thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matthew. Appreciate it, buddy. There's always I think there's a chance, just looking at it cynically, that the ACC and SEC, not that they have problems anyway, some of these schools, but might really get an upper hand on high-end talent. The Big Ten would have a hard time to any of the kids on those rosters if they say, hey, don't transfer because we're going to play in the spring, and they cut the spring out from them too, man, there would be an exodus, a mass exodus like we've never seen from a football conference before. Just a mass exodus. So yeah, they don't need to do that. So one advantage I was actually thinking about though, say in the not that these conferences ever communicate with each other, but what if the Big Ten did come up and the Pac-12 did come up with some sort of bubble / attainable scenario for the spring that actually looks really enticing and is smart and is well thought out and well planned in the next month, then maybe the conferences that are still planning on the fall might think twice about it. If they have a blueprint to say, okay, that's what you do. Because right now, just say we're going to move it to the spring with no guidelines at all of whatever that looks like. What day? Are you going to be playing in Minnesota on January 12th? Really? Like, what's that going to look like? So once they come up with a feasible plan, maybe in the next 2 weeks, then maybe there is a chance that other conferences would get on board. And the biggest thing, in my opinion, is the NFL has a say in it. What is this going to do to the combine? What's this going to do to the draft? Are they going to push the draft back? Are they going to help pay for testing, which would be great because it is their minor league after all. If the NFL and the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and maybe the Big 12 come together and come up with a feasible plan in the next 3 weeks, then maybe it does seem more appealing to wait till the spring. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. But do we think the Big Ten, number one, is going to come up with a great plan in the next 2 weeks? And if so, would they share it?
We've had 5 months.
Yeah, exactly right. You've had 5 months to come up with something, and now August 11th, you're calling it off.
There was some news, obviously, beyond the optics of trying to make a public impassioned plea to let the players play. Another player has opted out, a defensive lineman, Dennis Briggs Jr., which I think is a guy that was probably going to provide some pretty good depth for this season. So that's a bit of a bummer for Florida State, redshirt sophomore. He was emerging as a redshirt sophomore. And then Ira also got some added, thoughts on the tailgating aspect. A lot of fans want to know what that's all about. I don't know if it's going to be advocated, it sounds like. But at the same time, they really can't police it and tell people not to show up and not tailgate. I guess they can say that, but if they don't enforce it, they don't enforce it. So it sounds like that door is somewhat ajar with some details coming. But another player opting out, I think, was sort of that surprised me, just because McClendon's a guy that, or not McClendon, I'm sorry, Briggs is a guy that you're probably expecting some production out of. So that was a bit of that kind of caught me a little bit off guard. But
do you think it matters that so many players do want to play? Do you think like Keyshawn and Kane, what they did today? I saw somebody on Twitter called them political puppets or props. And I'm like, well, that's really dismissive of two bright guys that have minds of their own. And I don't know necessarily that if the governor said, hey, I want you two to sit on a round table, long table with me and talk about this, if they didn't want to and didn't believe in what they were saying, that they would do it. At least I would hope not. We kind of need to give some of these guys a little more credit for knowing what the deal is and having a mind of their own and being an adult. I don't know what the answer is, though, because I don't think you can get them to sign a waiver necessarily saying we forfeit all rights to sue if something happens to us, unless you sign a waiver saying, look, we will provide all medical care for the rest of your life if something goes wrong from an illness you suffer on our campus. I don't know, because we don't know the long-term impact of this. So, but I get kind of a little frustrated that so many people think that the players' opinions don't matter. I don't know, because it implies that they don't know about it, that they're not read up. But they've just had two teammates opt out. They of course they know about it. They had their spring practice canceled. They've had multiple guys on the team get it, including the son of an almost NFL Hall of Famer get it right away in March, whenever that started. So they know the impact and they know how serious it can be. I don't think they're going into it as blindly as people think they might be.
Yeah, but I don't know, like who do the players, whose minds do they have to change? Ultimately it's the presidents are voting on this. The commissioner is ratifying it, if you will. I mean, does Dan Radakovich at Clemson, is he going to push his president that much harder because Keyshawn Helton and Josh Kane want to play? I mean, again, though, like in that moment, being in that in the IPF, hearing what the governor of Florida, the third most populous state in this country, most powerful man in the state, the university president at your second most, third most highest enrollment university, or second in the state, talking about how important it is to continue to play football. Like in that moment, I'm like, there's no way they're going to walk this back. But I just don't know who could make them cave in. But the player's opinion, I mean, did it catch anybody off guard? I mean, did it catch anybody off guard to hear Josh Kane and Keyshawn Helton talk about they played football since they were 2 years old?
No, it was the insinuation that they're exploited and they're athletes and they don't want to play. You're making them risk their health for your bottom line, which you could argue that that's true, but it's also something that they're like Norvell said, they're there voluntarily, and importantly, they're still on scholarship. Dennis Briggs is still on scholarship, even though he's opted out. That is an important distinction that I hope everybody realizes. Even if they don't play, they're still on scholarship. Florida State is not kicking people off the team for opting out.
Yeah, but that's bothering some people though, that they're able to still be on scholarship and not playing. Oh, are they going to stay in town? I hope they better leave town then. If he's going to opt out, he better leave town. Can we use a scholarship on somebody else? A lot of that's happening, and it's the gross underbelly of being a college football fan. But I digress. You've been on the line for a minute and a half. Thanks for hanging tight there. Appreciate it. Who's this?
This is Bill from Corpus Christi, Texas. How you guys doing?
Look at that. All right. Corpus Christi in the house. Doing well, Bill. How are you, man?
Oh, we're hanging in there.
Yeah, I heard that.
Florida State football since I moved out here years ago.
All right. What's on your mind out there in Corpus Christi, the coast?
Well, I watched the interview earlier with the governor and everybody, and a couple of questions I think came up were, say, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are canceling their season. What if players want to transfer out of their programs, or is the NCAA going to waive the requirements?
Well, we've been kind of batting that around earlier.
We don't know. We don't know because we don't know if the Big Ten says, look, we're planning on playing in the spring. It's not fair to let them leave without a penalty because we are going to play in 5 months. We don't know how the NCAA will rule on that, if they give them immediate eligibility or if they don't. That is still up in the air. Everything is up in the air.
Right. I watched another YouTube channel earlier, this guy named Uncle Lou, and he brought up the point that if they do move it to the spring and say they play a short 8-game schedule in the spring, they're not going to be able to play a 12-game in the fall. He said that's 20 games in 1 year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that to me is a pretty big health risk as well. I don't quite understand. Maybe they'll have a great idea for it. I can't fathom one. Maybe they have some sort of awesome schedule where these kids' bodies aren't more beat up because they play 8 extra games in a calendar year, but they will be. And I can't quite fathom how they plan on doing that. Maybe delay the start of their season of 2021 season until November. I really can't fathom how they're going to do it.
I mean, I was just thinking if they did something like let Michigan play Michigan State and Ohio State, let Ohio State play Michigan and Michigan State, let Minnesota and Wisconsin and Nebraska play each other. Like play 2 or 3 games in the spring instead of having a spring game, make your spring just a little bit more extended than usual. And then you probably can get back on the rotation to play college football in the fall, the way it's intended to be played. So I would think if they're going to play spring season, the 8-10 game thing just seems too ambitious. It would have to be much smaller.
It'd be like an NFL preseason, just 4 games or so.
More or less, but you're playing teams that, Michigan, Ohio State, no matter who they when they play, where they play, that game is going to matter. If you're a Michigan fan, you're going to watch that game and root like your rear end off for your team to win that game. So I think just eliminate Rutgers. Michigan doesn't want to play Rutgers. And someone's going to play Rutgers. So Maryland and Rutgers can play each other, and then whomever else is at the bottom of the Big Ten. But let Iowa and Nebraska play their neighbors. Let Minnesota and Wisconsin, let them battle for Paul Bunyan's axe. Let some of those games still be played. Give the fans a little bit of a taste, a little bit of redemption. Give the players the ability to put stuff on tape like Josh Kane does as he desperately needs. and they can still go into the draft and not be too banged up. And then the guys that are still left behind can play in 2021. That would not be the worst sort of thing, but you're not going to get all the money and TV revenue that you wanted. But I think that gets you back in 2021 and doesn't make you look totally weak and a conference that doesn't care about football moving forward.
Right.
So.
Well, one last thing I saw where Scott Frost has already come out and said Nebraska wants to play ball.
Yeah, Scott Frost. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure every head coach wants to. I'm sure Randy Edsel didn't want UConn to cancel football, but they did. I'm sure Walt Bell didn't want UMass to cancel football, but they did.
Man, tough break for Bell, huh? Yeah, no, we'll see what avenues Nebraska has to play this season because they desperately want to, and they're not alone. Michigan desperately wants to, and there is a chance. I don't know how good, but there is a chance that they could go out on their own, rogue, and figure out some TV. Talk to ESPN, get some TV money, and heck, play each other. It's all about the will of the school. Number one is the conference, but then there's also the school. And the conference can shut down the actual conference schedule. But if Florida State wants to get together with a team and play, I don't know exactly what like I said earlier, I don't know that the conference can stop them. I don't know that the Big Ten can stop Nebraska from scheduling games. You can call them exhibitions. Obviously, they're not part of a championship chase. But if Nebraska wants to schedule 5 games in the fall, the Big Ten certainly can't stop them. They would have no right to stop them, in my opinion.
Well, that's your opinion. I'm sure contractually there has to be something where when your conference commissioner says no football, you can't turn around and play football.
I don't think so. I don't think you'd even put that. Who would think to put that in the contract? Oh, by the way, if a pandemic hits and you want to go on your own and play football, that ain't happening. They might be able to do it, buddy.
All right, Bill. Appreciate the call, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate what you do.
No
Thanks,
problem.
buddy. Stay cool in Corpus Christi, Texas. I wonder what the temperature is out there.
Nice balmy 93 degrees. Shout out to William McMillan dropping us $5 in the e-tip jar. Appreciate you. Carlos.
Thank you, Willie.
Carlos finished with $2. Loves the show, guys. Corey, can I get a wake up?
Wake up. There you go. That's pretty good, right? I haven't done it in like 8 months. Give me a break.
Again, if you're new to the show, he did this. Corey's the one who started the whole wake up thing that I yelled at the beginning of the show. Organically, he just said it one time. And
I would say it when I was boring myself.
It was amazing. It sounded so much better than anyone that I've ever done, but he's never been able to replicate it. So,
well, look, man, come on.
Give a break. Me. Gator Kirk throwing us $7.57.
There you go, Gator Kirk.
Represent Virginia Beach, 757, Tidewater, I think, Virginia Beach, something like that. So
hit the thumbs up button. Thank you, Gator Kirk. We appreciate it, buddy. Yeah, Walt Bell.
Why is everyone gonna hate on Walt Bell, man?
I just looked up Corpus Christi right now. Feels like 90, or it is 90.
Okay.
Feels like 104.
Ooh.
Little toasty in that part of the state, I guess.
It's weltering. Let's try to maybe get some quick hitters before we sign out of here. Apparently somebody from Oklahoma State is in the portal, but that's Oklahoma State. That's the Big 12. They might still play football, so who knows? Michael Jennings did ask this. I saw somebody on Warchant also ask, when players opt out, can they change their mind?
I would absolutely. I would think. I wouldn't think it'd be like Norvell telling Dennis Briggs in September, no, man, you quit on your team. You're done. No, that would be, there'd be zero chance if they wanted to come back that Norvell would say, no, you're not allowed to, because theoretically, what we're being told is the coaches, and I don't necessarily just think this is coach speaker lip service. They think these players are safer right now doing what they're doing than they're out on their own. So if a kid wants to opt in, even if you're not, don't think he's much of a player, you don't think he's gonna have much of an impact, you do it for his safety, in your opinion, if you think it's safer. So yeah, there'd be no way that they'd say no. Markakis for the Braves, he opted out and opted back in, and then just hit a walk-off a couple nights ago.
Yeah. As a Laker fan, I'm hoping that Avery Bradley opts back in, but I don't know. You can leave the bubble in the NBA. You can leave the bubble, but when you come back in, you have to go through the whole protocol and the testing. I would imagine if you want to opt back in, you're still on scholarship. You're still taking classes. You're still eligible, but obviously you're not probably in peak shape to be able to return to play to action immediately. But yeah, I wouldn't see any reason why not, unless coaches took hardline stance about think about this. If you opt out, there's no coming back in for this year. I can't have you wishy-washy. I don't see Norvell taking that sort of a hard line, but it's possible that some coaches are.
Well, here's the thing. So if these are things I do want to answer. Dennis Briggs has opted out. Does he still have access to the testing? because that would be my concern. Number one, you're paying for a test for a kid that's not on the team and is theoretically isn't around the team. But he will be too, because they're still going to be friends. They're still going to be hanging out. But
probably still has a roommate that's on the football team.
So, but if he opts back in, there has to be some sort. If he hasn't been getting tested regularly, there has to be some sort of quarantine period if he wants to opt back in, where they have to test him a couple times, maybe 3 negatives before he's allowed to join the team, something like that, I would imagine.
And then Deadhead Josh, which we've kind of already been kicking around. We'll sign off on this. Everything moving to spring. Do we expect to have the kids turn around in 2 months to play the following fall? Let me ask you this, Corey, and then we'll leave. Although it's probably going to take a minute or two. Look at that, Ray Pereira.
Man, Ray is back.
Man, Ray, absolutely worried sick about you. Absolutely worried sick. Comes in at the last minute, drops $20 for us. Appreciate you, Ray.
Thank you very much, Ray. Thank you, man.
You can ask a question. All right, so the whole thing here now. Again, we'll keep Ray up here as we put Deadhead Josh's question back up here for a second, just about turning around and playing football 2 months afterwards. Ira wrote a column kind of predicated around the belief that ultimately these decisions aren't being made maybe necessarily out of the concern and the welfare of the student athlete, but more along the lines of not wanting to blow up the amateurism model because these players are making demands. They know they have leverage. So the way you kind of avoid having to deal with that is by kicking the can down the street and doing a spring season. So I guess, how practical do you think a spring season is? I think we've already kind of mentioned it. It doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, do you think that the Pac-12 and Big Ten, more than anything, want to preserve the amateurism model, and that's why they're pushing things to the spring? Because they don't want to make players play right now in the teeth of the pandemic when they're not getting compensated, potentially getting sick, and then looking, like they're heartless and money hungry.
I think it's a factor. I don't know if it's the determining factor. I think it is a factor. It's something that would never be talked about. They would obviously never say it. There's a lot of reasons. The liability, if a player does get sick and gets God forbid, a death, but even a serious illness. But then again, what if a regular student gets it? Is the president on the hook for that? I don't know. It's easy for me, and I've had a lot of opinions on this for the last 5 months. It's easier for me to have opinions like this when nobody is under my leadership. Nobody is looking to me for answers. I can just opine from the safety of my kitchen table, my kitchen nook. I guess this would be a nook. And so it's it's easy for me to do that. It's easier for all of us to have opinions when there aren't people's livelihoods on the line. But I do think that's a factor, but I just think it's hard to make these decisions, and these are essentially government employees, and they just want to kick the can down the road. It's hard to make a decision. That we thought they had made a decision, but they hadn't, and they went back on it for reasons we still aren't quite sure yet. As Sankey said, I'd love to know what's changed. So I think the main reason is, I think they're worried about the safety of the student athletes. My whole, as you know, is, well, okay, what about the regular students? That's all. That's because I just think the student athletes in the bubbles they had set up for them, and they're not real bubbles, were safer than the rest of the student population, whether they're wearing masks in chemistry class or not. But I'm not that disingenuous. I'm not that cynical to think that this was solely a save the model move. These are crazy, unprecedented times. And I think they think they're erring on the side of caution and safety, even in the face of maybe numbers that don't quite back that up as far as positive tests among student athletes compared to the regular population. But we're all going to see what this looks like in September, man, when kids get back on campus. Sorry, I'm a downer. Ray, you're the best. You're the best, Ray.
And shout out to Jim Lijah. Lijah's out?
I think I'd go with Leah there.
All right.
Hey, Lijah. L-I-J-A, folks. Discuss amongst yourselves.
I need to check it out and see, can you custom, obviously you can custom amount the money you throw in the tip jar because Gator Kirk does $7.57, but I like $1.99. Not worth
to, yeah.
I do have a $2 bill. I have a lucky I have a $2 bill in my wallet. Ira Schofel and I'll leave you with this, are leaving El Paso, and we grabbed something to eat at the lovely El Paso International Airport. And next to us was a family. I don't know if they had Florida State gear on or not, but they were leaving. They had their cash on the table to pay for their food, and on the top of it was a $2 bill. And I looked at him like, is that a real, genuine $2 bill? And he's like, yeah, it is. And then I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I go back to talking to Ira. The guy literally hands me, he's like, hey, go ahead, take it. I'm a banker. I'm around it all the time. He's like, I usually give it as a tip. Part of my tip to make people remember me is I use a $2 bill. So he gave me the $2 bill and I still have it. And then as he's leaving, he's like, thanks a lot. Big fan. To Ira, not me, but to Ira.
Of course, not to you.
But he was a Warchant subscriber, so it was crazy.
Hey, you know what? Before you leave, you should tell people about the waiter at the place the other night.
Oh, should I say his name?
Sure.
All right. So me, man, I'm not a big man. I can go on rants all day about wait staff and how we're supposed to tip and not tip or whatever. But this guy was genuinely like a very kind, attentive server. And I was out on a date with a young lady, and we took forever to order. He came over like 2-3 times. I'm like, I'm not ready. Guy was still nice as can be. I even juked him out one time where he came out and I'm like, dude, we still haven't looked at it. And he didn't even flinch. I'm like, I'm kidding. We finally have ordered. But anywho, we wrap up for the evening. Nice guy, gives us the bill, and is the first date I've been on with the young lady. And on top of the bill is a note. I could have, if I would have known all this, I would have sent myself the photo. I took a photo of it. He just said, big fan, thank you.
He said, wake up, exclamation point.
There you go. That's right. Yeah. Wake up, exclamation point, big fan. So people everywhere are listening, and I tipped him an obscene amount of money because I had to, right?
On that, yeah, absolutely. After that, he's not going to be a big fan if you tip him 7%.
Yeah.
We're going to lose a listener.
And he really did do a great job too. So that's what made it less grimacing for me to have to, pull the purse strings. But anyhow.
And I'd like to leave people with this, Aslan.
Go ahead.
Real quick. If you don't follow me on Twitter, playing a little night tennis last night with my girlfriend, Stephanie, just hitting around, not even playing a point. And I hit it was a high bouncer. It was up about head high. She rears back with her forehand. To hit it as hard as she can, and she's got a powerful forehand. There's a bat that comes and flies to the ball as she's making contact with the ball, and she hits both, and the bat did not survive. The bat went down like a sniper had gotten it. It did not move after it hit the pavement, as you can see in that picture. That is a dead bat.
Ugly, the ugliest thing.
Oh, they're awful. They're awful creatures, not just for what we're going through now, but just even without that, they are awful, awful creatures. So I did not feel bad for her at all, or for the bat. Stephanie ran to the other court and screamed as if the bat had bitten her. And then she says she's never going to use the racket again because it's been infected. But we're doing our part up here to get rid of the bat problem.
There we go.
One forehand at a time.
There we go. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning on in. Thanks to Jim, Ray, G, William McMillan, Carlos Finch, James B, Big Throw Athletics, Harlan Harris, everyone who threw in some money into the tip jar, which, we're not soliciting it, but we do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We will have a live call-in edition recruiting style tomorrow with Michael Langston, 7 p.m. We'll have interviews tomorrow in the late morning, early afternoon. So be on warchant.com. Again, use the promo code Norvell 2020. Get you 25% off the annual membership, $25 e-card to Garnet and Gold, and 3 free months on top of it. So nothing stops this train. We're going to keep cranking out content. That's what we do. Thanks, Corey.
You got it, buddy. You got it.